In this, and I didn't mean to screenshot, video, we're going to be making a very simple way to interact with the world. So as in most games, you have the ability to pick stuff up, drop them, and that kind of stuff. And I want to have that ability here and show you a very simple way that you can accomplish it. So one thing that we're going to want to do is, and this will also really help lead us into the way of checking if, well, lead us into the way of showing you how interfaces work. So I'm not going to cover that right now. Instead, we're going to set it up so when we press E on something, we can pick it up and pretty much move it anywhere and then drop it again. So we're just going to pick it up and release. That's it. So let's go ahead and begin. I do want to clean up the beginner tutorial character because it has a lot of stuff that we do not need inside of it, including a lot of things related to VR that we don't actually need. What I'm going to do is going to the bottom of the header, starting from enable touchscreen movement, I'm going to delete all of this all the way up until look at rate. Then I'm going to remove on reset VR and on fire. Remove using motion controllers, fire animation, fire sound, projectile class, and gun offset. Roll up more, remove our motion controllers, our VR muzzle location, VR gun, muzzle location, and FP gun. And that is going to be it. So now we have a much simpler class that we can work with. Let's go over to the .cpp real quick because we have a lot of stuff we have to fix up, such as in the constructor, everything pretty much from FP gun all the way down. Then everything inside of begin play, except for super, and I'll explain what that is here later on. Remove the stuff inside of our key bindings, our setup player input component. Remove our on fire, on reset VR, begin touch, end touch, this giant commented out section. And then the enable touchscreen movement. That should be the last thing. I think I missed one. I may have accidentally removed the setup player input component, which I think I did. Let me see where that's at real quick. Yes, I did. So in the very first one that we deleted, I got rid of setup player input component. So we're just going to delete everything again, just make sure we leave that there. And then we will be good to go. Just going to do that real quick. And we are done. And I deleted the first person camera component now. Where's that? Of course, right there. Now, okay, there we go. Now we're good to go. So we just deleted everything related to VR and our gun. Now we're going to right click and hit build selected projects and wait for that to compile. And once this is done compiling, I want to show you how you can enable live coding, which we are going to set up to try to make our workflow a little bit smoother. I don't know if you heard it. Well, actually, no, you didn't, because my desktop volume is not being recorded for some reason. But when I compiled, it went ahead and made a sound in Unreal Engine. And as you can see by this log here, hot reload was successful. And it took, X seconds. Now, when I compiled from inside of the IDE over to Unreal Engine was able to know, and it kind of reloaded itself, so to speak. So if I load up my character here, everything related to the weapon has been removed, and all the VR related stuff as well. So it automatically did that for us and reloaded it. Now, this works sometimes. Other times it will flat up make your engine crash. And then there's the worst kind where you will get very unpredictable results by not really knowing what happened because it doesn't really explain it. It doesn't give you any indication. It's just one very weird, sporadic result that you never could have expected. That's what you get often. So that's with hot reload on. So usually when you modify anything in the header, you will want to restart your engine, which I'm going to do right now. So that way you can make sure, okay, everything should be good to go, and it's like I actually wrote it. So now we can move on to working with live coding. So real quick, hot reload is just fine if you're making changes to the .cpp, but if you're only going to do that, you may as well enable live coding, which works as well, and it's faster. So the way we do that is we come up here to compile, click the drop down, and hit enable live coding. So once that's done, as you can read here, cannot be enabled while it's active, so we want to close the editor. Notes checked. Recompile inside of our IDE just like before. Then we're going to want to actually launch it from the IDE. And then once that's launched, it will actually be enabled so we can perform a hot reload. I don't know if you actually need to launch it from the IDE. I haven't tested that yet, but I just normally do it from here anyways now when I'm using it. So here we are good to go. You'll see another UE4 window, which is this guy right here. And it says to save changes and press Ctrl Alt F11 to recompile the code. So I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to use that with logs. So here in begin play is called automatically whenever the actor that's in the world is ready to go. So it's on, like, whenever it's ready, it's loaded, it's good to go, everything's set, begin play will fire. What we're going to do is print out a log here to test out our live coding. So I'm going to do UE_log, log temp as the first parameter, warning as the second one, and then we're going to use the text macro to print out a string. So live coding test number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and press Ctrl S to save. Come over here to Unreal Engine, Ctrl Alt F11, and it will begin, and it's already done. So now when I press play, you can see down here, live coding test number 1 is printed. Now I can change this to number 2. Press Ctrl S and do a quick recompile. And we are done. Now it says live coding test number 2 when we hit play. So our live coding is in fact working. Now another cool thing about it, while you're actually in game and playing and moving around, you can also do it as well. You don't have to stop playing. You can make those coding changes on the fly. So that's something that makes it quite useful. Now back to our interaction. I'm going to go ahead and remove this log. We need to set up a function that gets called whenever we bind an action to it. And I'll get into actions here in a moment. But we're going to go ahead and create that function. So we're going to make it a protected function. I want to put it under here, under this protected section, right above move forwards. It's going to be void interact. Go ahead and create the implementation of it right here in the .cpp. And I'm going to print out a log in here. So interacting is going to be the name of it. So I'm going to go ahead and close down the editor and do a recompile because I made a change to the header. Let's recompile and relaunch. And while we're at it, I'm going to give it a try and see if hot reloading actually works without running through the debugger. Okay. And now we have that interact function. So whenever we press an action, we want it to bind to interact. So whenever we press the button, it's going to call it. And the way you do that is you set up an input. So you can bind inputs inside of Unreal Engine by going to Settings, Project Settings, Input, and here we have Action and Axis. Now Axis is more things for like controllers. So if you have a joystick, as you can see here, they're set up to with an axis. So those are float values. They're not just going to be 0 and 1. Action mappings are like key presses. So those are 0 and 1. We want to use these. So I'm going to delete the Reset VR and Fire Action mappings and hit the plus to add a new one. And in here, I'm just gonna call it Interact. Then we have the key, which I'm going to use E. So the E key right here, that's going to be the interact key. Then save all. So inside of r.cpp, we go to our setup player input component function, and you can see here's all the other bound actions. So this one's bound to jump like this. This one's move forward, turning, all that kind of stuff. Under jump, we're going to bind another action. We bind it by using our input component. Now our player input component is what receives our inputs. So as we press a key, it handles it. So what we're going to do is player input component, bind action, interact, which is the name that we have here, then the event type. So for example, we have IE underscore, we have pressed, released, repeat, double click, and that kind of stuff. I'm going to use pressed because when we press the key, I want it to happen. And then we have this to refer to our own object. And then we have the function. So we're going to use the address of, what do you call that? Symbol, I guess would be the word. Then the class name, which is our own class. So a beginner tutorial character. Then colon, the name of our own function, which is interact. Now, whenever we go to actually press the key, it should call the interact function. So now I'm going to test out the hot reload real quick. I think I saved it. So let's check. So I press E. Okay, cool. Hot reload or live coding does work. So now when I press E, as you can see, it's saying interacting. That's what we want. So we have the function bound. Now we just have to add functionality to it, which I will do in the next video because I'm trying to keep these roughly 10 to 15 minutes and under. So I will see you in the next video. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can also find a link to my Discord server below. See you in the next video.